No need to change my ways to impress anyone now, Prince Grayson commented to Radion. For a second he almost wished he had picked one of the fancier sets of clothes to wear while he was meeting with the king, but he was a simple prince. You did have a hard time finding anything suitable, commented Radion dryly. Some of those clothes were pretty crazy looking. They had stopped by his quarters to drop off the rest of the clothes the prince had chosen. He laid them down on the bed. He slipped on the chain that he had left on the nightstand beside the bed that he had taken off before his bath. It was the only piece of jewelry he had worn. The medallion on the chain displayed the royal family's crest. Grayson tucked it into his shirt. "Are you ready, Your Highness?" asked Bella. She was waiting in the living room for him when he walked out of the bedroom. "I am," he replied, waving his hand, motioning for her to lead the way. She opened the door and he followed, closing the door behind him. "I am a little surprised that King Liam was true to his word about this tour of the castle grounds," Prince Grayson told Radion as he followed her. She led him down a flight of stairs before turning in the opposite direction they had gone in earlier. "I would have thought he would have been too busy to see me. Maybe he just wants to pick your brains and get you to slip some Peorian state secrets to him," Radion replied. They turned again into a larger hallway. Portraits of the former kings and queens of Valerian decorated the halls. Prince Grayson took a few moments to soak it all in before replying. Large windows with their shutters opened released the mid-morning sunshine and fresh air into the castle. "He can try," he mused, "but I know you will stop me if I say anything I shouldn't. Wow, look at the massive gold chains that hold the drapes back on the windows," he commented, distracted by the opulence of the ornate drapes hanging on the walls of the hallway. He continued to follow the silent servant who, even though she was walking quickly, never looked to make sure he was still behind her. The hallway entered a breezeway adorned with majestic columns of stone, statues of lions, elephants, and tigers. At a metal gate that led to the inner courtyard of the castle stood the king, a teenager, and a couple of guards. "King Liam seems to be fidgeting a little," noted Prince Grayson, continuing talking to Radion. "The fact that he is acting nervous doesn't seem to bode very well. This is the first time in hundreds of years that members of the royal families of our two countries have had any kind of conversation, let alone face-to-face contact," observed Radion. "Even if the latest truce was negotiated by our ambassadors, copies of the treaty were sent to, and from our countries to get the king's signatures and stamps of the royal signets," and Radion said, "I can tell you're nervous. You just hide it better." Prince Grayon turned his attention to King Liam, taking Radion's words to heart. Bella curtsied to the king before taking her leave. Grayson turned to the king and bowed deeply, showing respect for the king's status. "Your Majesty," he said graciously. Come, said King Liam. "Let's dispense with formalities. There will be enough of that at the ball. This is my son Edwin, who will be the future king of Valerian." "What do you think of Prince Edwin's dragon?" Grayson mentally asked Radion before he turned to Prince Edwin and acknowledged him. "Prince Edwin," he said with a slight respectful nod. Prince Edwin nodded in return. "Prince Grayson," he said. Radion finally answered Grayson. "Prince Edwin's dragon seems strong for one so young, but I don't sense anything extra special. His dragon is definitely a match for King Liam's dragon, though." Prince Grayson didn't respond mentally to his inner dragon. He had noticed that the king seemed exhausted. "Let me show you the garden we have hidden in the middle of my castle," King Liam said. "Only a few outside the royal family have seen it." "Yes, my lord," said Prince Grayson. "I am honored." King Liam shook his head. "Call me by my given name while we walk." Grayson mentally stumbled at the order, not sure if he could comfortably act outside proper royal protocol. He tripped over his words as he replied, "Yes, King Liam." King Liam chuckled at the betrayal of Grayson's voice. Relief spread through his mind like water to a hot, thirsty body. The young prince was nervous. The king thought it was good to know that Prince Grayson was not an overly confident, arrogant young man. It could possibly make negotiations easier between the future monarchs at his side. Prince Grayson smiled at the king as he led them into the garden, though he had no idea why the king had chuckled. He couldn't help but admire the large waterfall that stood in the center. Clear water flowed over the rocks, and into a pool lined with semi-precious stones at the bottom of it. The water from the pool that surrounded the fountain was released into what looked like various irrigation ducts that were beside some of the larger fruit trees, and from there water was run strategically among the rest of the garden. "You have grapes growing in here," Prince Grayson said when he noticed grapevines at the far end of the garden. All through the garden there were lots of beautiful flowers and blooming bushes, and these spices and vegetable plants. He continued, impressed by the sight. We have to import some of those from the south. My great-great-great-grandmother, Queen Saria, started this garden hundreds of years ago, King Liam said proudly, appreciating the prince's enthusiasm. She loved flowers and bushes of all sorts. The vegetables and grapes, along with other seasonal berries, were added by my great-great-grandfather, King Kellen. The story is that he didn't like the produce brought from Halua from the farmer's market, added Prince Edwin. He claimed that by the time it took for the produce to get to his table, it was no longer fresh. So King Salen decided to grow his favorites in the royal courtyard among Queen Sarai's flowers. Over time, we have planted some of the exotic herbs that we have become accustomed to, explained King Liam. It's much fresher in season, and when we dry the extra for when it's out of season, it is still better than what can be brought by caravans from the south. This seems very practical and convenient, Prince Grayson commented. It is not a traditional idea to have a garden like this in one's courtyard, but I find it very pleasant. What is that fragrance? You don't have honeysuckle in Peroria, chuckled King Liam. I am not sure, but if we do, I have never noticed it before, admitted Prince Grayson. We also have lilacs further down the pathway, said Prince Edwin. I enjoy them when they are in bloom. Its fragrance is my favorite among all the flowering bushes, but unfortunately they only bloom in the spring. I am very impressed with your garden. I think I would like to take this idea and implement it in our royal garden, said Prince Grayson as he admired the garden. Feel free, King Liam laughed. It's not a state secret. Prince Grayson chuckled. Tell me more about King Salen. He seems like an interesting man. Prince Edwin seemed excited to brag about his ancestor. He had the royal engineers build the fountain and the irrigation system. It gets very hot here sometimes in the summer months. The plants that need more arid soil are planted on the outer edges of the garden. He came up with the idea of a system for getting water up to the castle without having to carry it all the way from the river. So he and his engineers invented large bucket-like containers that could be strapped to a dragon. The dragons skim the lake to fill the container. They fly back, and when they draw their back legs up against their belly, it tips and spills the water into a tank built specifically for the fresh water. It is large enough that it only needs to be filled once a week, King Liam informed him. He also had a system designed to catch large amounts of rainwater, and so in rainy or stormy weather conditions the dragons aren't needed, added Prince Edwin proudly. King Kellen imagined himself a progressive thinker, and as much as he considered himself such, he was not a traditional king either. King Liam chuckled. It is said that he took advice from his queen Leah. It cost him in the end, so the story goes. He tried many new things, some on the queen's advice, and a lot of his ideas weren't well received. Some of the ideas cost a lot of money, nearly bleeding the kingdom dry. Because many thought he was heeding bad advice from the queen, he fell out of favor with the royals and many of his subjects. King Liam shook his head. My father named me after her, so I will not forget the stories of the king who lost his power early to his son because he was no longer loved by his people. All because he chose to listen to the advice of a woman. Many of the laws we have in place today concerning women were put in place by his son. Prince Grayson held his tongue. If King Chelan had followed bad advice that his wife might have given him, that was on him, not her. He hoped this line of conversation changed quickly. King Liam led them deeper into the garden. The rose bushes were heavily laden with red, yellow, white, and even purple roses. The aroma was sweet. I heard your mother advise the king your father before her untimely death. Is this true? He asked curiously after their conversation had dwindled to silence for a while. Prince Grayson stopped in his tracks, thankful that he was behind the Alarian royals. I wonder where this conversation is going, he said to Radion. I don't know, he replied. Just be cautious of the words to use and your tone. I can tell you are agitated by this course of conversation. You have studied the ways of Alarion. We have very different policies concerning the rights of women. Answer truthfully. Answer wisely. Prince Grayson hurried to catch up with the king when he turned and noticed the Peorian prince had stopped walking. Prince Grayson's own hazel eyes were changing colors rapidly, the only sign of his irritation. Yes, my mother, Queen Lilette, was known to advise my father the king on occasion. According to my uncle Romid, my mother was a very wise woman. I was only 6 when she passed, so I don't remember much other than the love she freely gave to Chaim and me. I have heard that father gave her advice, the same consideration that he gave his royal advisors. At the end of the day, he made his own decisions. Calm down, young prince, King Liam laughed. I was just wondering how different your country's policies are from ours considered concerning women. Let's sit down. I have an important question in mind. I want to figure out how compatible you would be with my daughter. King Grayson stood as still as a deer caught in the headlights of a car. Here we go, he said to his inner dragon. I have a feeling it's the end of the peace treaty.